So what we're going to do today is basically we're going to do this sort of a Florida scene, I guess you'd call it. It's a sort of a misty scene. I put together a couple of practices, and I did this one here. You can barely see it, I think, on the left of my palette or my board here, which is going to be something like this. It's going to have a lot of mist in the background and some water here with some reflections, and then a couple of little peninsula that sticks out here, and some bank on the left side with some trees that are up closer, so you can still see the identity of these trees, and yet the back is going to be all in mist. So that's what we're going to try to do today. I had it geared for maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, because at the time I had my Zoom account was set up to I could only have 30-minute, 40-minute sessions for 3 people or more, unless I signed up for like an annual subscription to Zoom. So instead of worrying about the amount of time we had left and worrying about the start of the video and whatever, I just went ahead and signed up for the annual subscription for Zoom. So anyway, so I don't have to worry about time now, but I did have a painting that might be a little faster. It could be probably, I want to say maybe 30 minutes or something like that. So I'm going to get my easel adjusted here, and I'm going to get there's my palette. You've been looking at that, and just for those people that will see this after the Zoom meeting is over, I'm going to go through the paints and brushes to explain what I'm using again, because that's always a good thing to put on the front of your video when you put it out on YouTube. So I have my Sterling Edwards set of brushes and my palette here, and as you know, if you've watched me, and most of you have, he uses these bristle brushes, medium and small. These are really good for blending and putting on large washes, putting on clear water. A couple of flats. I have a 1-inch flat, a 1/2-inch flat. I have some rounds. I have a number 12, a number 8, number 4. And I have a couple of script liners. One has a lot of bristles on it, and the other I cut about half the bristles off so it was skinnier. So I don't know how many of those brushes I'll use, but I'm going to have them available. And then the last thing I'll do is go through the paints with you and describe them again. These are Holbein Japanese watercolors, transparent watercolors, and I have I think there's 14 colors here, and this is also the same palette that my friend Sterling Edwards uses in his painting, so I try to keep up with him with some of the stuff, so that he spends hours and hours and hours analyzing different paints and paint manufacturers, and I don't feel like I'm even going to try to do that. I'm just going to take his palette and stick with it. So these paints are starting here. This is Payne's Gray, Cobalt Blue, Ultramarine Deep Blue, Prussian Blue, Permanent Violet, Hooker's Green, Umber, Burnt Sienna, Quinacridone Scarlet, Bright Rose, Brilliant Orange, Quinacridone Gold. It looks like it's brown in the palette here, but it's gold. Permanent Yellow Deep, and Cad Lemon Yellow. So that's the mixture of paints that we're going to use, and I'll keep watching to see if anybody else wants to be admitted here. I'm got to kind of keep looking to my right, but let me get in on painting here now. We'll go back, and I'm going to put my palette on the, let's see here, where do I got to move it to? There, I want it right there. Okay, so I'll get this lined up, and I got my computer, my video controls here, so I can hopefully show you the entire page. And I've also experimented. I realized after I moved into this my smaller studio here that I had myself out of alignment compared to what I had before in my previous house, where I had a lot of room, and I realized that my painting surface was probably 4 to 6 inches too far this way toward me, and I kept getting my head and arms and everything in it. So I've actually moved it over about 4 or 5 inches now to make room for that. So I don't know if you can see the sketch or not. It's fairly faint. I just put it on using like a number, really HB pencil, but here's the horizon line is going to be here. So this is where our mist is going to end and join the water. So my mist will come down here, and then I'll have the reflection starting here. I've got a couple of trees, and this is going to be a big bushy tree and some other bushes on the ground here. So I think you can see the whole width of that there. That looks like you can see it all. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start, as usual, I'm going to start wetting the paper, and I'm not going to wet all of it. I'm going to just wet the area down to the horizon line with clear water. So I'll just do this with one of these big brushes. And my little studio out here is, I think I told you before, it's about 6 feet by 8 feet, so I don't have a lot of room to mess around and expand. But it also gets very warm out here because the sun is pretty much be shining all over the place if I open my blinds here. So I've got a lot of potential sunlight in here, and that just bakes me up, and it bakes in this little room that I have. But I have a fan on, I have an air conditioner on, and hopefully that's going to help. Alright, so there's the background. That's for the sky. And with the sky, I'm going to try to use a little bit of my ultramarine blue and mix that with a little bit of burnt sienna, I'm trying to say. And you see how I get an interesting little gray color? And the more blue I put in it, the bluer that color will get, and the more burnt sienna I put in, the grayer it will get. So by mixing these two colors, I can create a gray instead of using Payne's gray. Payne's gray has a very dark element to it, and it will almost take over. So you have to be careful in your when you use Payne's gray. And I use it a lot to get some really dark darks, but in this case, I want this to be sort of bluish gray, and the sky is wet. So I'm going to just pop this in, and it's got a little bit too much green in it seems to me. I'll throw a little more blue in, and we'll just let this fade and mix with the sky color back here. It should be fairly light, and this will dry lighter. It'll lighten up probably 20–30% maybe. But I want it to have some value change from left to right. I want it to be just a little darker on the right side over here, and that's called variation. And that's a good concept to follow when you're painting, is to, in your compositions, to have some change in the sky. You want it to be lighter or darker, darker or lighter. You don't want it to be all the same color or same value. So I can even put just a little bit of my quinacridone red in here and just change it a little bit so it's not all one color. Get a little purple in there, and this will help. And I can just feather this all out now into a misty looking area. So not much to the sky. It's really just a lot of just I'll throw some extra water in here to give me a bit of texture, maybe some clouds out there. When it's a cloudy day, you don't have a lot of clouds because they're all kind of mixed and merged in with the rest of the sky. So that's a typical sky you might see when you have a lake that's got a lot of water around it and a lot of fog. So now I want to put in some of these background trees, and I'm going to use a big brush again. So far I'm only using this 1-inch brush. I haven't used anything else. And now this paint has to be just a little bit drier. And that's usually the problem with watercolors, is trying to figure out how much water is in your brush, or how much water is in your paint, how much water is in your paper. And if you can't get that figured out, it's always it's kind of frustrating world if you continue to have trouble with that. So it takes a lot of experimentation, a good bit of practice. I'm going to see what I can put in here that's going to be very light. These are trees that are in the mist back here. Well, that looks on the camera. Is it too much light shining on it? I think I'm getting a lot of light. I moved my things around in my studio here, so my lights, I had to move those a little bit and change the height of a couple of them, so I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. But right now I'm going to just fill this in with a lot of, just a little bit darker value, and maybe throw in some other colors here that could maybe lighten that up just a little bit, maybe a few browns. Trees here in Florida they get brown and they get gray in the winter. And when they're in the mist, it's hard to see them, what color they really are. But all of the pine trees, the cypress trees are all lost all their leaves now, finally. This is the time of year when they lose their leaves. And they all look sort of brownish. Palm trees, they don't lose their leaves, but they get a sort of a grayish, yellowish color in the winter that kind of makes them look kind of ugly. I'm going to put just a few other colors in here just to brighten up, add a little more greens. I'm putting a little of this quinacridone gold in here. It gives me a little bit of yellow and it turns some of that blue back to green. So I'm going to get some things that look a little bit like there might be some palm fronds back in here. Just very simple, nothing really outstanding. It's so light, it's going to be hard to see it for you anyway, but I think I'm just leaving it at that. That looks kind of, probably needs to be a little darker because of the sky is pretty dark. Made the sky a little darker than I wanted, but that's all right. I'll just pop in a few of these and darken up some of the bottoms a little bit. Just foggy, misty. Can't tell exactly what's out there, but you just know there's something going on back there. Okay. We'll leave that for a while, let that dry, because when I want to paint over it, I want it to be dry. So let's come down here now and get some more clear water and start putting in some of the background water here. I'm going to leave a little gap between that paint that's up there and the clear water I'm putting on down below, so I don't have this running, because I'm painting vertically. And many watercolor painters just paint on a horizontal surface of some kind, and they don't have to worry about this running all the way down the page to the bottom. But when you paint on a vertical easel like I am, this you have to take that into account. So I have to be more careful. I have to spend more time working in other areas while I let this area dry. And because it is a kind of a hot day here, hot room, it's actually going to dry fairly quickly, I think. Okay, so this is where my water is going to go. So what color is the water? Well, it's going to have some reflections that look like those trees up above. It's going to have something a little darker. And I'm going to start it by just kind of pulling down. And merging that together very lightly with my brush here. I'm going to pull all the way down to the... Again, this is darker than it should be, but it's going to lighten up quite a bit when as that dries. It's going to lighten up. So I'm just getting these starting reflections coming down here. It's almost a monochromatic painting right now. So, get a few more. Trying to keep this light. It's the idea of being a misty scene. You want this to be kind of light, but you do want to have it give it some color, so it's not all dull gray. Because most misty scenes would probably be dull gray. So I'm just doing this to fill this in, fill the water in. This is all drying out down here already. Over here I'm going to have some more water, but I will be putting some more color in this over here from this little protrusion that's out here on the right hand side. But I'm going to put that base color in right now and kind of let that go. Okay. Hope you can see the difference between the background and the middle ground here. I'm going to put just a few more spots to help darken some of that up there just a little, so it's more definitive. So I got almost half this painting done. We've been going, what, 13 minutes? Yeah, I probably could do this in a half hour if I really got to it. Anyway, this is that's a good underpainting for the water and for the sky and the trees in the background that are sort of in fog. All right, so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop and dry this thing, because if I start putting any more stuff in here, it's going to start running together. As I say that, I realize I probably ought to go ahead and put some of this color in this foreground here. It's just sort of a beach color, like a little bit of I'm using really a lot of water in my paint, not paint spray, in my burnt sienna. And I'm just going to let it cover this corner down here, and that'll be pretty much my first blocking in layer. So I've got it all blocked in, got some reflections showing, I got some background showing, and the paper's all pretty well covered. Just a little spot over here that's not covered. As long as that paper has some water in it, these edges will soften up and not form blossoms. All right, now I'm going to get my hair dryer out. Try to dry this thing, so I'm going to turn my microphone off so I don't blow your ears out, and I'll be right back in a few minutes. Here's my microphone. All right, it's fairly dry. I still feel a little bit of moisture here, but if the paper feels warm or room temperature behind your hand, it's probably pretty well dry. At least I can put a drier paint over that, and I'll get the kinds of objects I want on top of there. So I guess I turn my microphone back on. If you can hear me, nod your head. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just put maybe a few trees in here, not much, but I'm going to put one over here on the right-hand side that's going to have kind of like an oak tree, I guess. Some of these trees that have a lot of the moss growing down on them, and so I'm going to use my still using a 1-inch brush. I haven't used anything but this 1-inch brush so far. However, as I say that, I think I'm going to change to my 1/2 inch, because this tree is only about a 1/2 inch wide on my paper. So I'm going to use it. I'm going to start here where it connects with this tree, sort of connects with the this little peninsula I haven't put in over here yet. So I'm going to put the tree in and just kind of do a something like that. It has to be dark, because it's got to be darker than anything that's around it, or you won't see it well. Okay. And along with that, to make those branches that I want, I'm going to use my number 4 round and try to come out here and put some interesting little branches like that, and maybe a few more up here like this that kind of squiggle and run off the page. Because I'm going to come back and put in some leaves and a lot of leaves over this, and put some moss hanging down as well. I'm also dabbing in some dabs of darker Payne's Gray here to give some texture, some look to this tree, so that it doesn't look like it's just all one color, because these trees are never all one color. So these branches need to look like they're hooked in. I'm going to hook another branch over here. Maybe have one come down like that over here. So these are just branches that I'm going to put leaves on here and put some moss hanging down. So that's pretty well set. Let me come in and now put some of this peninsula under this. It has to be darker too, so I'm going to use my burnt sienna, and I'm going to just come in here and put in something that looks like some dirt around this tree. As long as the bottom of that tree is wet, I can let it merge with the dirt, and it will look like it's part of, it belongs there. So So this is going to go way out, a little bit out to here somewhere. So it just kind of merges in with the water and fog. And so I'm just mixing my colors between my burnt sienna and Payne's gray, and just kind of throwing it all in here, and come back and get my little number 4 brush here, and throw in maybe another tree or two here that we can merge in the scene like that. I pulled it up like that, and you see how that looks broken? That's called dry edge, dry brush. And that's very effective when you're building a scene like this, because it gives the tree itself, makes it look like it makes it look more real, actually. It's a good trick to know how to do that, because you should always try to add some dry brush to your paintings somewhere, and just leave it at that. Make a few more darker spots here and there, and again, I see the bottom is not, if that were a hard edge there, it would look like it were glued on. And because I mushed up the bottom of it and I made it blend together, you can't tell that's not growing out of this dirt that we got here. Okay, so much for that right now. I'm going to let that dry, and I think maybe while I'm there, I might as well wet this with a real light brush of fairly clear water. Got some green in my brush there, but if I do this now, I can come in and put in some of these shadows, some of these reflections that are going down this way. I want that wet because I want these to be blurry, and I want it to look like a mirror down here, because if I put a mirror on it, it would pull that together like that. Another one over here, this is going that way. When the tree goes this way, the reflection's got to go the other way, right? So we're coming over here, we're going to make this reflection go this way. Again, I put that water underneath it, clear water, and it has made it look real soft and fuzzy. Those are called soft edges. And while I'm at that, I might as well pull down just a little bit of this dark from here and let it sort of add to the water shadow that I'm building here. Reflection in the water. Okay, I think I'm going to leave that now. It's looking pretty good. So let's go over here and start on this other big tree that's over here. And this is going to be a kind of a mixture of trees and some bushes that are all kind of run together. And I'm going to get some darker paint now. It's going to be, I'm going to use my blues and purples, my hooker's green. I'm going to really get a dark greenish, bluish purple. I don't know what else to call it. Dirty greenish purple. Okay. I'm going to use my flat brush again. I'm up 1 inch flat. And I'm going to come up here and just say, pow, bang that in like this. And I'm starting to get some of these leaves and stuff on these trees that are part of this bush that I've got over here, this tree. And I'm going to have a trunk in the middle of it, and it's going to come down and just have a lot of interesting colors in here. I'm not trying to paint a perfect tree, because this thing is kind of growing out of this bank and it's probably kind of all over the place. And so I want to do that. I can put a tree trunk through there. I can put some other colors in there to change the color. And I'm also getting some dry brush. If you notice my latest brush like this and lay it down on its side, see that? That's dry brush again up there. That's very good for making leaves that are sort of fading out, that are attached to something, but they're you can see a lot through them. I'll put a little yellow in this thing. I want to get some another color in here that's going to brighten this up a little bit, like right in here. That color. And move it down here. We're getting, these things are kind of growing on the ground down here. We got all kind of stuff down here. I've got another green and yellow bush down here that's a little bit brighter. I'm going to make it into one of these like this by just putting the that. I can come in here and make this a I think they're called palmettos. It's sort of a, they always have that distinctive look about them. And so see, I've picked up the lighter yellow, some lighter green, a little bit of darker yellow, a little bit more lighter green up here. And to make it look like this is all part of the same painting, I'm going to want to come over here and touch in something over here with that same color. So this is for harmony and for to make it look like this is all part of the same painting. I don't have something on this half of the painting, I don't have those colors repeated over here. So I'm putting another little palmetto type of thing over there, just to balance it out a little bit. It doesn't totally balance it, but it makes it look like it belongs to the same painting. Part of a determination of whether you want to check your painting for a good, to see if it's a good composition. If you cut your painting in half this way, one side should not look identical to the other. But there should be elements in each side that make you realize this has got to be part of the same painting, because I see the same colors, I see the same types of leaves, maybe the same types of trees or branches or whatever. Picking up some Payne's Gray now, and I'm coming up here and putting a trunk in this little gap, and I'm going to run up here and throw in some other, where's my little number 4? I'm going to throw in some more branches to kind of tie this together so it looks like something is really out there holding this up. It's not just something I can throw in like this, a few things here and there. And because this is still wet, those things will merge and will blend in with that tree in the background. Something up here, maybe it looks like that. I don't have anything I'm looking at here, folks. This is just ad-lib stuff and just kind of playing it by ear. Down here, put in some more of this dark. So I'm throwing in some really dark darks in some places down here to help get to make it more dramatic, composition out of it. And if you want the light to show, you gotta paint dark around it. Otherwise, the light won't show. So, got things here. All right, that's getting close. We're doing 28 minutes. Yeah, I could almost finish this off in 2 minutes, but I'm going to take a little bit longer. I'm not going to cut it short just because there's a timer running over there. I don't have a constraint on my Zoom meeting account now, so I'm not worried about it. Okay, so I'm going to put in some rocks and some other things floating down here. That what says rock? Does that look like a rock? I put 2 colors in that brush. I put the burnt sienna on one side. I tapped the corner in Payne's Gray, and I'm going to do the same thing down here. See how I got the 2 colors in there? If I make it angular, a lot of angles, you'll think that's a rock of some kind, hopefully. If I don't mess it up, I don't keep going back and messing around with it, you'll think it's a rock. But I am going to go back and add some weeds and stuff like that here around some places. Let me see, that brush doesn't, now that was a nylon brush. If I get my bristle brush, it's got hundreds and hundreds of bristles in there, and I get some of this darker paint in there, green, and if I want to make some really nice weeds and stuff, I use this brush to do that. See that? How that works? I'm just flicking up just making dozens of little brush strokes there out of this brush, just flicking the brush up like that. It's a unique property of a bristle brush that you don't have in most of your watercolor brushes, to do that kind of thing. So anyway, okay, so I want this to look like it fits together. Now otherwise, because it looks like that might be glued on, so I'm going to go back and get a little bit of this burnt sienna here, lighten it up with a good bit of water, and just come in and kind of finish this off down here to make it look more like it's sitting in sand or something. Make the sand a little darker and bump it up against that, and just finish off this corner right now with some clear sand, and do something similar up here, maybe just a little lighter, I don't know. Okay, so I've got some different colors there. I've got a few things that look like they're some shadows maybe in the sand. Okay. Get my script liner out. Now it's time for a little bit of, my friend Sterling Edwards calls this graffiti, or calligraphy, not graffiti, calligraphy. Well, I haven't put my leaves over here yet where I want to put my moss. I've got to do my moss. I can't forget my moss. Okay, let's show you how to do moss. I got to put some leaves out there first. So I'm going to get my big brush, get this green, get some more of this darker green color here that I had on this side, and get a big brush, and I'm just going to blop it in there in big globs. I'm not going to try to paint leaves. I'm just going to come in here and put in things that look like they would be hanging off of these limbs. Change the color, get a little bit different color, and a little yellow maybe. So we got all these leaves in here. Got some rough edge. Got some areas that are really dark, and a few little light ones hanging out here on the edge, like that. Leave a lot of air holes through there, and that's what this side of the brush is good for. It's basically making it look like we've got a lot of air through there. And then to put moss on that, I would take this, get a greenish gray. How do you gray down green? You add some red to it. Why is that, you ask? Because it's opposite of the color wheel. Red and green are opposite. So you get a green, sort of a grayish color. You can get gray like I did with blue and burnt sienna there, which is kind of an orange. Those are opposite of the color wheel. And red and green do the same thing. They turn to gray when you mix them together. So here we're going to put in some, try to use a flat part of my brush and just kind of come down, and that was way too wet. I should have taken the water out of the bottom part of my brush before I tried that. It needs to be a little grayer than that. Some of these things hang down pretty far. I wonder if I can fix this one a little bit by going over it and pulling more down like this. Okay, so starting to look like a scene where you have a lot of mossy stuff hanging down. If I keep messing with it too much, I'll make it look worse. So I don't need to put moss on every tree, on every branch. I just have to let you know that it's out there, and that's kind of what's hanging. I should put a little moss over here maybe, hanging down like that. So it looks like it's connected. There's a reason, you know, with moss, it's moss on both sides of the painting here. Okay. What else we got? I'm going to come back and put some more smaller trees, some other things, some more stuff on the bottom of this area here. Some extra trees. I don't know where I got that green from. Maybe I got it because I put my brush in it. Ding ding. Oh my gosh. It's supposed to be brown there. We'll fix that. So these are just trees and things that are kind of growing over here. Extra weeds maybe and things like that that come up here. We'll crisscross them. Make them look like we got more stuff going on. This isn't a... Nobody out here doing grass maintenance and trimming all this stuff up. These are all weeds, and if they'll grow however they want to grow. And kind of the same thing over here on this side. I'm going to come over and put some more weeds and darker things coming up here like this. And when they're in the foreground like this, you can make them just about as big as you want to make them, and they won't look too big because it just pushes everything else back when you do that. Okay. Over here, I think that's pretty good. I think I'll leave that alone. This is, I think that's obvious. You can tell that's a reflection there. I don't know if I want to do anything in the background anymore to make it any more distinct. I may mess it up here if I'm not careful. Just make it a little darker back there in some areas. Show just a little bit more definition of that bank back there. Not much, just enough to show that it's definitely not all one. It's not all water. There's something going on up here in these trees up here, or whatever's out there. Okay. Last thing I do. Lindy's watching. Well, it has to go up there, Lindy. That brush is not good for that. I've done that before and messed up. Get a fine brush like this and make it, let's make a little V. Still not great, but I'm going to put a couple, 3 birds up here, and they're not going to be too big because if I made them too big, it'd have to be a pterodactyl or something by the time they get over our head when we're looking that far away. And then the only other thing I would typically do, which I'm going to do right now, is I'm going to throw some splatter on this to kind of loosen this up. This looks all really kind of tight. So splatter some color that will show up. Take a brush full of a lot of water, a lot of paint, and just tap it on here like this. Splatter is good for a lot of stuff. It really adds texture and interest to a painting, and adds some. And if you get too much, you can, when it's like that, you can always brush some of it off if you got too much, but I just want to leave some of that out there so that it, excuse me, I have to fix my computer's wanting to restart itself while it's running a Zoom class. Okay, I'm going to put my name on this and say we're done, and we'll maybe try this again sometime here if you guys like it. Okay, there we go. That looks like we went for about 38 minutes, not counting the time we talked. So there we go. Yeah, there's my number 1. I got to turn this back on. Main. Nope. Put this on main. I know what I got to do. I'm trying to run my camera controls here and talk to you at the same time. Okay, there you go. I'm going to call that finished and say that's a little misty Florida scene, and I hope it looks like that to you, and I hope you can give this a try. And I really thank you all for joining and tuning in. I know this is an odd time of day maybe for a lot of you, but I know for the folks in South Africa it's 7, 8 o'clock there maybe, I don't know, but anyway, that's what I want to go through with you today, and I hope that you'll join me on the next time I try this, and get your brushes out and paint, Michael.
Hey, nice job, Larry. I have no talent, but I enjoy watching.
Okay, I appreciate you being here.
8:41 here, 8:41 p.m.
Yeah, see some chats in here. Okay, can't see the bottom of the painting. The background's amazing. Thanks, Lindy. I didn't have my chat window up, so I couldn't see what you were saying there. It says, can you still? Did I have the zoom in too far that you couldn't see the bottom of the painting?
Yeah, probably a little bit too close, but we were able to see most of it.
Yeah, I have 2 other cameras running, and so I actually have the better video of this that I'm recording right now than what the chat or what the Zoom recorded. So I'm going to put this together and I'll re-edit it and put a final video out on YouTube. So if you want to re-watch it, I'll be sure that you can see the whole painting when that happens. So,
It will be nice.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry.
All right, Derek. Thanks for joining. See you next time. Okay. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye bye.